Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Near Talk. I'm happy to have you here. I don't know yet what this episode is going to be titled. I just kind of have like a somewhat vague idea for what I want to talk about, and I'm just going to run with it. But I was thinking it might be useful or at least interesting if I talked about kind of my personal experience with starting out as an artist and also kind of just advice, I guess. I don't know if you want advice from me or not, but because I don't have any great secret or anything like that. But maybe my own experiences will be useful if you yourself are interested in getting into art or some kind of creative endeavor, because I think it's pretty similar for everything. You don't have to necessarily want to do erotic art or porn or whatever like I do. You could be getting into some other artistic endeavor, and I think a lot of the same philosophies and mindsets are useful regardless of what that is. I could be mistaken about that, but from my perspective it seems like a lot of them are very similar. For starters, as far as advice goes, the most important thing I think is to make sure that you really truly love whatever it is you're setting out to do. And that's like for me, that's the most important thing with any kind of creative endeavor, because when you're going into something creative, or something that requires like you making something for consumption for entertainment purposes especially, it's very tricky and difficult to find any kind of like success for that, like whether that's financial success or even just like emotional success. And if you're looking for just recognition or praise or whatever like that, even if that's what you want and it's not money that you want, even that can be very difficult and take a long time. And it's going to be pretty much impossible to do that if you don't love what you're trying to do. Because like every now and then somebody will find like an immediate sort of success. They'll just hit the right combination of exposure and talent and just being seen by the right people. But that's so incredibly rare, and you definitely can't count on that. So for me, I've been drawing since I was in kindergarten. I remember in early elementary school doing superhero drawings and different pieces of artwork. I had like a little like dollar store picture frame, and I would draw new characters to put in the picture frame, and I would have that on my desk at school, and I would swap it out with new characters as I created new characters for my superhero world. Some of whom ended up in the binder of superhero drawings that I did some videos with. If you've seen those, some of the characters in that dated all the way back to my elementary school days, and I think I mentioned that in those videos. And I would just always be drawing because that's what I love to do. So eventually, when I got to be a teenager and started getting interested in sex and pornography and stuff like that, I found adult artwork, and I think I was just looking at it for probably a year or two before I ever thought about even possibly drawing it myself. It just didn't occur to me that I could make my own. And I did that some on my own, but I didn't really enjoy doing it for me. I don't know if this is true for most people, but for me, the art that I make, I don't enjoy it for its own worth or value. Like I enjoy it in the act of sharing it. Like when I was talking about with the wrestling YouTube channels a couple episodes ago, the reason that they're on YouTube is because if I just did it for myself, it wouldn't be fun. But putting it on YouTube, and even if only a handful of people see it, like it's the act of getting it out there and having it be seen that I like. So for my art, when I was drawing stuff in high school, I would show it to my friends and stuff, but I didn't feel right sharing the porn with them. Once or twice I did, but it was hard. I didn't have a good way to share it, we didn't have internet, or like a reliable kind of internet, and I didn't have a scanner at that point, so I had no way to like scan pictures into my computer and send them. The only way I could scan stuff was if I scanned it at school, which is how a lot of my like DeviantArt drawings got done. So I would scan them at school, but I couldn't do that with the porn. So I didn't have like a good way to disseminate it amongst my friends. Like once or twice I would bring the literal paper, like fold it up in my pocket and share it like during moments where I thought I could get away with sharing it at school, but it didn't work well and it was weird. But eventually, around the time I was graduating, I started posting a couple pictures here or there on websites like PAL Comics and WWOEC. Not much, it was just like a picture here, a picture there. And eventually I had a thread set up on WWOEC where I would be posting more regularly. And once I was doing that, having the pictures actually be out there, it was a great motivating factor to, one, try harder, because now people were seeing it and commenting, and the comments were nice. It's weird, the better I got, the meaner the comments got, but at the start the comments were all very nice, but I still wanted to put the best quality stuff I could out there, so I worked on improving in a way that I hadn't when nobody else was looking at it, and my productivity went up the longer I did it, because there became this expectation to create content. And for me, that's kind of like a double-edged sword, because like on the one hand it's stressful knowing that people are expecting this or expecting that. Obviously that kind of weighs on you, but at the same time, if that wasn't there, it would be a lot harder to actually get stuff out. So it does help, but it's also stressful and unpleasant. So like I said, it's a double-edged sword. But all of it worked because of how much I really enjoyed drawing, and specifically drawing porn, because porn for me went into a lot of what interested me about art to begin with. I liked drawing characters and people. I've always been more interested in drawing people than in drawing like any like animals or plants or like still lifes or architecture or any of the other stuff. So we had to draw a lot of stuff in high school, but it was always the portraits I liked drawing. I really like drawing faces, and I really like the human body and the way it moves. And the great thing about porn, like porn and superhero comics are like the two artistic categories where you can really experiment with the way the human body works and moves, because you get a lot of different unique poses doing like fight scenes in latex or sex naked. You know, you get to see the way the muscles move and the way the way a thigh will kind of scrunch up in a certain crouch, or like just different little things like that interested me, and was one of the main reasons why I started drawing more and more porn, because I had been doing the superhero thing most of my life, but as an adult, porn, well, first of all, it was easier and more accessible for me because I didn't feel like I needed any kind of backing to find an audience. Like if you draw porn, you just put it out there and eventually you will find an audience, even if it's not good. Like my early stuff wasn't good, but there were still people seeing it. I was drawing characters they recognized, and I was, putting them in situations that maybe they didn't always see them in, and so it kind of created its own audience. Whereas with superheroes, you can get an audience posting it online, but to be really successful with superheroes, you kind of have to fall in line with like a comics company or get some kind of publishing or some kind of standardizing. Like there's regulation and other people you have to work with, and I hate working with other people. I really like being solitary. So porn was perfect because it was so easy to get it out there and to get an audience. And I did it for several years with absolutely no monetary returns. And maybe that wasn't smart. I didn't need the money at the time because I had a job and I had school, but I was getting like loans and stuff to pay for school, and some of that money was also keeping me stable. So I didn't need money from the art because I was getting it from other places, but I also wasn't spending as much time doing the art as maybe I would have liked. But it was like my escape from the pressures of school and work. I would have like 90% of my time be doing one of those two things, and then I would have that other 10% of my free time to sit down and do art, and it was nice because I was really passionate about it. So I was doing it for its own sake, I guess you could say, but eventually I started taking on commissions. I don't remember what sparked me wanting to do that. I think it was just somebody asked me about it, and I was like, you know what, extra money doesn't hurt. So I accepted it, and then I just started accepting more, and like the act of doing it made me have to set prices. And so I was making a little bit of money doing that, but my prices were really low, probably lower than they should have been. So I wasn't making like a lot, and I wasn't getting a lot of commissions, but I was getting some money with it. And that, eventually I finished school, and money started being a bigger problem because now I had to start paying off loans, and I wasn't making any more money at my job. I was actually making a little bit less because I had switched jobs to something that was more part-time, so I could do more art. So I was making less money, and I had more debts to pay. So that's when I started looking into things like Patreon and monetizing that way. Luckily, I had been doing art for a really long time up to that point, so I had an audience already built up. So a lot of you listening may have even been part of that audience. So I started the Patreon. I tried not to like shove it on people because I've always felt a little bit uncomfortable about like asking for money, because like I said, I was doing the art for its own sake, and I would probably be doing it no matter what, but it was definitely getting to the point where I had to kind of choose if I wanted to keep doing part-time work and art on the side, or if I wanted to get a more demanding job and do a lot less art. And thankfully, my audience wanted to see me do more art, so they came in and supported me on Patreon, and I was able to monetize it that way. But I had the benefit of several years, like 5+ years of building up that audience before I ever got to the point of setting up a Patreon. And for people starting out now, that's probably not going to be the way you do it. You're going to want to have the Patreon immediately, and I don't blame you. That's what I would do if I was starting now. It's like things like Patreon weren't really around when I was starting out. Like you had maybe PayPal or something like that to kind of collect commission money or something like that, but you didn't have like a convenient way of collecting monthly payments from a large group of people. I don't think anything like that existed, or if it did, I never heard of it before Patreon came along. So if I was starting now, yeah, I would want the Patreon immediately, but I don't know if you want to put too much faith in that. I would think if you were just starting out, obviously set up the Patreon or like Subscribestar or whatever website works for you, because there's a few options now, and like have that and plug it, but I wouldn't recommend making it the center of your work. It just seems like when you do that, it makes it a lot harder to gain new followers and new people who would want to support you. It feels more enclosed and cut off when you make Patreon like the center of your world. I would recommend setting up your own site, probably obviously like a free site, especially if you're just starting out. You're not making enough money to warrant buying a domain or something. I've had to do that recently, but I had the benefit of already having the Patreon and lots of funds to help support that decision. But get some kind of free website that you can point people to. Put stuff on there. You don't have to put everything on there. You can do what I do, which is like give stuff to your Patreon supporters first, and then later put it out for free. I think that's a good system. It's worked well for me anyway. Or just put certain things free, but other things are behind the paywall on your Patreon, or if you are setting up some kind of pay site yourself or something like that, or whatever it is you're doing. And that kind of comes down to personal preference. I've found personally, the more stuff you disseminate out among people, the easier it is to pull people in. So it's sort of like I don't know, like fishing. You would want to like maybe sprinkle the water with some kind of like bait or fish food or something to bring in more fish before you try fishing, rather than just putting a hook in the water with nothing on it, you know? But that, you know, that's the sort of thing that where I don't really know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm just speaking from my own personal experience. But yeah, and I don't know if my advice will work for everyone, but I don't even know if I've offered that much actual advice. But that's kind of been my path. I was really passionate and really invested in the art I did. I got off on sharing it. Basically, I really enjoyed people's reactions and responses to my art, especially the positive ones, but even sometimes the negative stuff would still motivate me in positive ways. Not always. Some of it's just awful. But, you know, the comments and the feedback motivated me and kept me going for a long time with very little monetary response. And now I've got the monetary thing where I mostly survive off of art now, which is the dream. Like I can't ask for a better outcome than that. And like I'm not to the point where I'm like living comfortably off of just artwork money, but I'm closer than I ever thought I'd be, and I think that's going to happen eventually, where I can just live completely off of my art, which is my best case scenario. Like that's the best thing I could imagine, the best outcome I could imagine for myself. So, yeah, it's worked for me. That path worked well for me. And if there's anything from that you can glean or learn or find use in, then I'm happy for you. So I'm gonna end that discussion there. I think that pretty much wraps up what I thought I would talk about. I don't know how coherent it was, but anyway, let's go ahead and move on to our mix and match challenge. So if you're new, the Mix and Match Challenge is a fun little game I play at the end of every Nier Talk, where I use a randomizer to select 2 random characters from a list and pitch a basic premise for if I was going to do a comic featuring those 2 characters. So let's go ahead. I haven't selected anyone ahead of time, so I'm going to right now randomly select our 2 characters. First up, we have number 56, who is Mina Ashido from My Hero Academia. That's a popular character, and I'm glad we're not getting all like obscure second or third row characters this time, because Mina's a pretty good one. And then our second character is number 221, Ikumi Mito from Food Wars. God damn, that's a good pairing. Those are 2 of the most like fan servicey designed characters from those franchises. And they even have kind of similar names, Mito and Mina. Those are kind of similar, right? Wow. Let's see. What would we want to do here with these 2? Well, you know what? This is not the first Food Wars My Hero Academia crossover that we've gotten in this game. Mostly because My Hero Academia and Food Wars both have a lot of characters that I really like the designs of, so there's a lot of entries from both on this list. So it's not too surprising that it's happened again. So when we did crossover before, I don't remember the characters' names offhand, but for that pairing, I speculated that we had some kind of cross-school event where the 2 schools were competing with one another in some kind of like I think I settled on like a spelling bee, but some kind of academic contest that doesn't feature athletic achievements or like anything where superpowers would be useful, and it doesn't focus on like cooking, so that neither school really has an advantage. But there's some kind of cross-school event that brings these 2 campuses together. So what I want to do for Mito and Mina here is set their comic at that same event. So we're just saying that that other comic happened, and then at the same time this comic would also have happened at the same event. It's just easier that way, and you know what? If we happen to get more My Hero Academia Food Wars crossovers, we'll probably set them at this event too. Why not? It makes it a lot simpler. So, Mina and Mito, I think there's any number of ways you could kind of have these two meet if they're in the same vicinity. Mina especially is like a very outgoing, friendly person. It's very easy to have her just kind of immediately start talking to anyone. Mito is, her thing is that she's a specialist in cooking like high quality meats. It's in her name, Mito. And she's really proud of that, and I think there's got to be some way to bring that in. Maybe, I don't know if Mina has any preferences as far as eating. Like, I don't think she's like a vegetarian or a vegan or anything. If I'm wrong about that, then maybe this won't work. But let's go ahead and say that Mito at the event is just cooking up some really nice meat, maybe with some of her other friends from her school, and Mina just kind of smells it and decides to interject herself into the event, and then so she's there with Mito and probably some of the other main characters from Food Wars, and they're like eating together and having a good time. There's a running thing in Food Wars where that group of friends will drink I think it's like rice juice or something, but they get like drunk off of it. I don't really remember, but there's some kind of thing like that. So maybe they're like drinking too. And you know, I think Mina and Mito, I could very easily see them kind of hitting it off. So Mito, her design, like she looks like she's obviously like this sexy bombshell. She walks around half naked all the time. Mina also has no problem being pretty naked, but even though Mito looks like this really sultry, voluptuous character, and she has that design, her personality is actually like really shy and reserved. She's easily flustered and embarrassed when things aren't quite going her way. So I think their story would rely on Mina kind of bringing Mito maybe out of her shell a little bit, which isn't too hard. That's the main storyline between Mito and Soma, who's the main character in Food Wars, is that Soma's so blunt and outgoing that he kind of helps Mito relax and come out of her shell a little bit, and that's why she's got like this crush on him. And I could see her and Mina having a very similar sort of dynamic where Mina will just speak her mind very plainly and Mito gets kind of embarrassed about things. But I see them kind of connecting, and Mito maybe starts getting like a little bit flustered and like blushing and embarrassed by things Mina says. Maybe while they're in the group, they maybe even do like some games or whatever, and Mina gets like naked or something like that. Actually, you know what? There's a character in Food Wars. His name is Ishiki, and there's a running gag where whenever they're having fun together, and this is like late at night at the event, there's no competitions going on, the students are just intermingling, so they're at their little private party or whatever in some side room, and Mina's with them, and there's this running gag where when they party, he just throws on an apron and nothing else, and he's walking around in a naked apron. So I could very easily see Mina seeing that and being like, that looks like fun, and grabbing like another apron. Hers would probably be like white. His is usually pink, but I think the pink would blend in too much with her skin, so maybe she gets like a white one or like a purple one that looks different off of her skin. And she's also in a naked apron, so the two of them are like dancing and joking around and in nothing but an apron. And Mito starts seeing Mina's little pink butt like swishing around while she's dancing, and she's blushing and getting embarrassed, and maybe even there's like a thing where like Mina like trips and falls on her, and she's in the naked apron, and Mito gets really flustered and she storms off, and Mina's like, well, did I do something wrong? Why did she get upset? So she chases after her, and the rest of the group stays behind. So we want to get these two alone for this comic. So Mito doesn't know that Mina's following her, and she like goes into like a a bathroom, maybe it's like a public restroom or something, or some private area, maybe like a closet, and like locks herself up, and she realizes that she's gotten really turned on watching Mina. And so maybe she starts like kind of playing with her like nipples through her top, or like slips her fingers down the front of her shorts or something like that, and just starts kind of like playing with herself and thinking like getting frustrated and upset that she's like this turned on by somebody she just met. But you know, Mina's really cute and attractive and has a very distinct look thanks to her quirk. Like nobody looks like her, so it's understandable that she get a little bit frustrated, but she starts like playing with herself, thinking about Mina. Maybe she's even like whispering under her breath something about like her name or something. I don't know. That may not be necessary, but basically Mina, who is following her, tracks her down and like opens the door to try and console her, and like finds Mito like partially undressed or playing with herself. So Mito eventually gets even more flustered and like covers herself up or whatever, and then Mina's very nice and kind, so she's like trying to console her. Maybe she doesn't even really notice what she just saw, or it doesn't fully register. She's just wanting to comfort this friend that she made who she likes, because they did have that connection, and she was kind of enjoying the conversation. So she's like trying to console her. Mito is mid-masturbation, so she's like extra horny now, and something just happens. Like maybe Mito kisses her, or maybe Mina figures out what's going on and then gets like this smile on her face and is like, you know, oh, it's okay. This kind of like, you've probably seen scenes that you can pull from for reference for this. I feel weird acting out the dialogue here on this episode, but like she says something like, you know, like it's okay, like let's just have fun together or something, and like kisses her. But then, you know, from there you've got it. Like at that point, they just, wherever it is that Mito ran off to, whether it's a supply closet or a bathroom or whatever private place it is, they just end up fucking there. And there's your comic. Okay, so that's 2 great MHA Food Wars Shokugeki crossovers. So yeah, I like that. That is a great pairing, I think, because like I said, those are like the 2 most fan servicey designed characters. Like there's a couple in My Hero Academia you could argue. Both shows have a lot of beautiful women, but like those are the 2 that kind of stand out to me as being like the 2 based purely on designs, like the 2 immediately sexiest characters. If you were to like line up the characters and ask somebody who's never seen any of the shows to pick out like who they thought like the sexiest character was out of the lineup, I could very easily see someone picking these 2. So I think that's, if you're going to do a crossover between those 2 shows, that's a nice one to do. So I think that about covers it. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I think we ended up going a little bit long, but if you did enjoy it, come back next week. Maybe I won't talk quite so much, and whatever I end up talking about, hopefully we will we'll have a good time discussing it. So I hope to see you all then. Bye.